The modern age of poetry. This is the phase or the period from 1939 to 1999. That is the period of the Second World War and after. So, this was a period where, yet again, the world, after being determined not to visit violence, we see that yet again the world was facing brutality, murder, extreme aggression, barbarity, and the Second World War unfolded with all its horrors. And this is the period of modern poetry. We have innovations, inventions on one side, inventions that caused mankind to have so many new medicines to prolong their life, and yet at the same time, we had horrible weapons being invented to destroy lives. So, the poets of this period, we can take mainly one is Ted Hughes. Ted Hughes wrote poetry mainly about animals. So examples are his the thought fox, leopard, thrushes. But through these animals, he showed the primordial raw character of man, the primal instincts that man still obeyed, still felt dominated by, even though we believe that we are civilized. A second poet we could take is Seamus Heaney. Seamus Heaney wrote about his Irish background, and he was very patriotic, very nationalist, and his poems represent a coming of age. That is the most important thing about his poems. In his work, The Death of a Naturalist, we see the coming of age of an individual and how the naturalist in the child dies as he becomes an adult. And in the same way, how so many thoughts like Blake's Songs of Innocence become experience. Then a third character we could take is Sylvia Plath. Just as one part of society, of the very gender of mankind, was going into war and brutality and colonization, we see the other half that was made up of women were coming forth. Paradoxically, when mankind faced regression and aggression, we see that women who made half of the society, were coming forth, getting educated, becoming authors and poets and fighters. This is where we see the feminist movement. All this gave rise to the feminist movement that came up in the 1960s. Sylvia Plath was an iconic character of the feminist movement. Her works, like The Mirror, Mushroom, in her work Mushrooms, she speaks about how the feminine voice was slowly coming forth like mushrooms sprouting from the earth. And in her mirror, she speaks about the feminine voice speaking back to her from the mirror. And her death actually proved to be a very iconic moment of feminism. We can say that all her poetry was dominated by the dilemma of being a mother and wife and the so called homemaker versus the poet, the individual, and the fighter. A fourth character we can take is Derek Walcott. Here we see that colonies started crumbling, the British Empire started crumbling, and slowly the colonies were winning independence. Like India winning independence in 1947, Sri Lanka in 1948, and so on. So here we have Derek Walcott, who said that I have the blood of the slave as well as the enslaved as well as the Roman enslaver, and his works showed the fascism, the racism. In his work, A Country Club Romance, he shows how a black man and a white woman fall in love and they are married, but soon she is ostracized, and slowly we see the isolation that leads to her death. So, Derek Walcott could be said a person, a poet whose superiority in technique was such that he understood the nuances of the English language even more than the native speaker. We saw how the colonized voices became, they started using the English language to speak of the native experience or the mixed heritage experience. The fifth poet we can take would be Grace Nichols. Grace Nichols, born in Guyana, the British colony, she spoke of the West Indian woman experience. She spoke about the experiences of the black slave and the migration of the 50s and 60s, the West Indian mother who migrated to London. And in her Tropical Death, she describes how the culture of that West Indian mother is erased, that she faces a tropical death in the new country that she has migrated to. Thank you.